Welcome back to my channel. The PWHL draft happened last night, and we have a better idea of what this Vancouver PWHL team is going to look like. Before we get into the draft, I have to mention that Vancouver named its head coach, and that is Brian Ilodowski. And he was with St. Cloud last year and 3 years in total, pretty sure, and spent some time over in Europe and also spent like 10-ish years coaching the North Dakota women's college team. So he's always been coaching women, so that's one thing of note. Another thing in between the expansion draft and this draft, Vancouver did sign some more players, that being Hannah Miller, Ashton Bell was drafted, and a few others. I will make a full roster breakdown more to like the end of the off season, just because at that point we'll have a better idea of who's gonna be where, and that's when training camp will be, so that will give us more information. Now getting into the draft with the first pick for Vancouver. So listen carefully, for this will be the answer to who did Vancouver draft in their first draft. 7th overall was Michelle Karvinen. She's a Finnish player. She's been playing in Europe for a while, and one thing to note is that she is 35. This is probably the only league that you'll see a 35-year-old get drafted. But we're here for it. It means that she's a veteran and she knows how the game of hockey works. So with Frölunda in the women's Swedish league, she had 21 goals, 14 assists for 35 points in 32 games, which is notable because if you heard, 21 goals in 32 games. That's a lot of goals in that short amount of games. So yeah, she's gonna be an interesting person to keep track of. She's a forward, so I wouldn't be surprised if she plays with like a Sarah Nurse or something like that on the top line or second line. Then in the second round, Vancouver didn't actually draft anyone. They traded their draft pick to Toronto along with their third round pick, which was 23rd overall. The second rounder was 16th overall, to Toronto for their 2025 third round pick, which was 19th overall, and goaltender Kristen Campbell. So we have the goaltending situation figured out. We've got a starter and we've got a backup. Starter is going to be Emirates Mashmeyer, and the backup is going to be Kristen Campbell. So Kristen Campbell is also a pretty good goaltender. She, last year with the Toronto Scepters, put up some respectable numbers. She was also their backup, I'm pretty sure. Then in the third round, 19th overall, with Vancouver drafted Nina Jose Smith. She's a Vancouver or North Vancouver pick, and she had 3 goals, 5 assists for 18 points in 37 games with the Minnesota Duluth. She is a forward, and she is 23 years old, going to be 24 in August. So one thing you'll notice, a lot of these girls are older. All of them have finished college or university. And yeah, so she's, as I mentioned, a North Vancouver girl. However, she did play for Germany in all of her international stuff. So that's one thing of note. Then in the fourth round, 32 overall, we drafted Brianna Brooks, who's from Whitby, Ontario. She had 11 goals, 13 assists for 24 points in 38 games with Penn State this past season. She is a forward again, and she is age 22. Her birthday is actually in a few days. She turns 23 on June 28th. So one thing to note as we go through for the last two picks is that the points aren't going to be like that significantly high, just because they do play in college where they play less games than what we're used to in the whole like junior NHL sphere. So yeah, as I mentioned, she's a forward, and so one area that Vancouver seemed to be targeting a lot was filling out their forwards, because Vancouver has kind of signed and locked up almost all their defense. And so that leads us to our only one defenseman that we drafted this year, which was Madison Samoskevich. She played for Quinnipiac University. She had 8 goals, 14 assists for 22 points in 38 games. As I mentioned, she's a defenseman, and she is 22, turning 23 in November. So, and she is our only American that we drafted. She's from Sandy Hook, Connecticut, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, she was 39th overall. And yeah, one thing of note with her is that her brother won the Stanley Cup with Florida this past season. So there's definitely some winning in her blood and some respectable numbers as a defenseman. And yeah, so look for her to, I would say that she's gonna be like middle pair or third pair defenseman, at least for the first little bit of the season and her career, probably. Then our last pick in this draft, which was the very last pick of the overall draft, was Chantry Bassey from Kelowna, BC, so another localish girl. She had 12 goals, 22 assists for 32 points in 28 games this season with the UBC Thunderbirds, which is of note because that's in the U Sports or the Canada University League. So that is kind of known for being kind of a weaker league. So that may be why her point totals are that high. But regardless, points are points. They don't ask how, they ask how many. So, yeah, we've got, and she's a forward. She's 23, turns 24 in November. So, yeah, we've got her. I believe that she was probably one of the top scorers in the U Sports League this past year. I would have to double check that. But yeah, that's Vancouver's draft year this year. And so we fill out our roster with more solid players. We pick up some localish girls. We, in my opinion, have a team that is competitive and will be making some noise for some playoff action this upcoming season. And we also have our goaltending situation figured out. Vancouver is just becoming a city known for its goaltenders. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on Vancouver's draft and how they did. Some things of note for how the overall draft was. I thought that the broadcast was all right. There's definitely some cues and timing stuff that could have been fixed, but we're in the early stages of this league. They're still trying to figure that out, so I'll give some grace on that. One player that I was looking to see where she would go was Abby Newhook, who is the sister of Alex Newhook, who's on the Montreal Canadiens. And I was hoping that she was going to get drafted by the Victoire just to keep, go where her brother is and stuff like that. But the Boston Fleet ended up picking her up, which is probably the second best place for her to go because she did play for Boston College. So, good for her. She doesn't really have to move that far. And yeah, there's a few other people in this draft that were interesting to see where they were gonna be going. I have to admit, I gotta learn more about some of these players and figure out who's really good, who's not really good, and yeah, so give me some grace as I figure that out. But that will do for this video. Click like, hit the subscribe button, please, and comment. What do you think about Vancouver's situation? Do you think they're going to be competitive? Do you think that they're going to be at the bottom of the league? Let me know in those comments. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.